After the failure of the November 1830 uprising, thousands of Poles left the country to live a life in exile. They represented the cultural elite, the artistic elite, the literary elite. What was the effect on Poland, on ideas, on culture, of having the major cultural and political influences be forged outside the lands of Poland? In this episode of Poland Daily History, we look at these issues in greater detail and assess the effect of this great emigration. Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. Today I'm in the studio with Dominik Szczęsny-Kostonecki, a historian and a PhD scholar, and we're going to discuss the Great Emigration. Dominik, thank you for joining us. I think that this time well, that was slightly before, but when he got to Paris, of course, I think it was in Paris that Mickiewicz came out with his great work, which is probably widely known, Pantadeusz, I think, which was written while he was in Paris. This is obviously quite a good period from a creative point of view.
The early 30s, yes, that was a very good period for him. Then he, of course, has this depression time, let's say, because his wife gets more and more mentally ill, and Mickiewicz gets depressed, and that's yet another interesting story, because there is a certain Andrzej Towiański that comes to Paris, a nobleman from Lithuania, and he meets Mickiewicz, and it comes to pass that somehow, miraculously, his arrival in time coincides with Mickiewicz's wife, let's say, renewal, intellectual renewal.
Right.
And Mickiewicz believes that it's thanks to Towiański. And Towiański takes control, mental control over Mickiewicz. I mean, a guy who is, who would say most incredible, stories. He would say a sectarian. I mean, Towiański, producing ideas that, different types of creation morph one into another to receive even greater excellence. I mean, you wouldn't expect Mickiewicz, such a great spirit. You wouldn't expect him to believe in this kind of bullshit. No, let's be frank. But psychologically speaking, it's comprehensible, because he believed that his arrival had something to do with his wife's renewal, and but Towiański was that charismatic that he exercised mental control over a number of Polish migrants.
So almost like a Rasputin type character.
Very good point.
Although that was sometime later in a different country,
Yeah.
but the same idea. But of course, also I think it's fair to say that the Hotel Lambert, just to go back to that, also became a centre not just for political, but also as a way, I think, of keeping alive Polish culture. And there was a Polish library set up not far away in Paris, which exists to this day.
Exactly.
A couple of boys' school and a girls' school, and so it became this sort of centre of keeping the Polish spirit from a sort of cultural, I suppose, point of view alive.
And this has a wider context, because till November uprising, the Polish culture is very little known in the West. I mean, why do we have to ask ourselves, why we have a statue to Mickiewicz in Paris, and we don't have one to, let's say, Krasicki, a great Polish poet of the 18th century? The only reason is because these people arrived in France, arrived in Paris, and so the West could get to know better Polish culture. So that's yet another, aspect of the whole thing. And perhaps that is the time that the Polish and the European, Western European cultures, they get the best contact in their history.
And of course, having this sort of centre of Polish intellectual life in Paris, to what extent did that help sort of broadcast or make known Polish culture, and what support did Polish culture receive from the French and Western Europeans more generally?
This is based on informal relations. For example, Piotr Michałowski, one of my favorite painters, famous for painting the charge of Somosierra in a series of paintings, would receive, he arrived at Paris as a promising painter, but not, let's say, not an expert. And he would receive further education in Parisian ateliers. Chopin, for example, would give concerts in Salle Pleyel. So this was kind of, informal help, which was very useful and, helped these people expand. But I wouldn't say that it was, official.
And Chopin did become quite a popular...
along with Liszt at that time.
Yes, he was
Schumann
had a great friendship with Liszt, as I remember, of course. But Chopin, interestingly, he didn't give very many public concerts.
No.
But he gave quite a few private, preferred to sort of give concerts in private.
The picture that we can see behind us.
Yes, shows such an event.
Of course, it's an artistic vision, but it's a concert that one of the concerts that Chopin gave at Hotel Lambert. This time I'm talking about the building.
We're talking about the building at the Hotel Lambert, because I think I'm right to say that one of Chopin's polonaises was specifically composed to the sort of Polish ball, which used to take place on a regular basis at the Hotel Lambert.
You are right. A number of, some say that, because we can, in general, we can split Chopin's compositions in two. Those who were composed before the November uprising, so before 1830, and the other half, let's say, an equal half. And these juvenile compositions are of course very elegant, catchy melodies and so on, but you don't have what Chopin is known for, so that unfulfillable longing for Poland, for the landscapes of Mazowsze and so on. So the best mazurkas, the best polonaise, perhaps the most famous polonaise, héroïque in French, in A sharp major, As-dur, which is always a must during the Chopin piano competition, which takes place every 5 years, was composed in Paris.